Hello, Phil here, and welcome to my review of Zack Snyder's Justice League movie. Now, this is kind of interesting because I actually did not see the original Justice League movie when it hit theaters several years ago. After having seen Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice and feeling it was atrociously bad, and then having seen the first of two Suicide Squad movies on digital demand and hating that one too, I was done with this whole DC cinematic universe. I just had no desire to really see any more movies. I told my audience that as they asked me, "Oh, will you go see this one? Will you go see that one?" I was like, I just don't care. They really did a bad job, in my opinion. I was so disappointed by Batman vs. Superman, how badly the characters were portrayed, the cinematography, Doomsday was a joke, like everything was bad. And so, when Zack Snyder's Justice League was released as a redo of the Justice League movie, that essentially was going to take a 2-hour atrocity to become a 4-hour epic. I was intrigued, but again, I wasn't necessarily that interested because I had really tapped out on the whole DC cinematic universe. Well, since I recently have been watching a lot of stuff on HBO Max, my viewers have asked me to finally watch this movie, and let me tell you guys something. I was blown away. I was actually pleasantly surprised in many different ways. Not having seen the original cut, I didn't have a frame of reference to directly compare and say, oh, this is better or worse than the original 2-hour theatrical cut. To give you guys some background, Zack Snyder was the original director of the Justice League movie, and the task of this movie was to try to bring together the cinematic universes of Superman, Aquaman, and Wonder Woman. Keep in mind, Batman had been in Batman vs. Superman, but also to introduce two new characters in The Flash and Cyborg and create a big Justice League movie that was supposed to kind of be like the Avengers of the DC Cinematic Universe. Difference being, it's less like Avengers and more like Avengers Endgame. Like, it really feels like this is the Endgame deal, but they skipped all that content in between and rushed to the finish line to try to compete with Marvel. Now, if they did it right, it would have been great. The problem was Zack Snyder, as he was making this movie, ended up suffering tremendous family heartbreak. His daughter committed suicide, and because of that, he bowed out of the project midway through. So DC hired, of all people, Joss Whedon, the same person who had worked on some of the Avengers movies, to come in and finish the movie. These actors, after the fact, reported seriously stories of abuse, stories of like some of the worst things they've ever been through making a movie. Ben Affleck apparently became an alcoholic and said it made him never want to act again, wondering why he was even doing it because it was such a bad experience and such a bad movie. So, wow. So when finally it was announced, well, that movie that came out in theaters was an atrocity. But Zack Snyder is back, and he's able to retake the helm of this movie, and he wants to recut it back to the original, incredibly lengthy format that he originally envisioned for it. People were excited. They were campaigning, give us the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. And that's what this movie actually is. It's a 4-hour-long movie. That's longer than any Marvel movie. That's longer than any Lord of the Rings movie that I've seen. That's pretty much the longest film ever. What they did is they cut it into these digestible parts. I want to say there's like 6 or 7 parts to the movie, where each one is a different topic. Honestly, you don't really need it, in my opinion. Like, it definitely can be watched as one start-to-finish movie, although it is so lengthy that it can feel a little bit long-winded in certain parts. Essentially, what I need to do is kind of give you an idea of what the movie is. So, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie yet, I strongly recommend you watch it first before you watch this review, unless you just don't care. But essentially, this movie tells 2 stories. The first story is the story of a threat to the Earth. There's these 3 almost like ultimately powerful items called the Mother Cubes. They're hidden throughout the planet, usually in each one of the different civilizations. One's hidden with man, one is hidden with the Amazonians that Wonder Woman is from, and one is hidden under the sea in the land where Aquaman comes from. Apparently, these mother boxes are so powerful that when united, they can create a dimensional rift that will open the dimensions and allow this world-conquering entity named Darkseid to come to Earth and take it over. Now, Darkseid wants to come to Earth because apparently there's this hidden thing on Earth called the anti-life equation that would make him ultimately powerful in the universe, and he wants it badly. If there was even history, there's flashbacks of previously Earth had been under attack by Darkseid's armies and minions, and the Earth forces actually united back then in the past and fought them off. We're talking about the old gods like Hercules and Zeus teaming up again with the Amazonians and, you know, the people from Atlantis before Atlantis was even an underwater empire, and they warded off the evil forces of Darkseid, and Darkseid vowed one day he would come back. So the movie's plot starts off with a new invader called Steppenwolf, this guy who's head to toe covered in like this metallic movable suit. It's totally CGI generated. He's supposed to be like the ultimate baddie. He uses all kinds of powers, including energy powers, but a lot of brute force powers as well. And he invades Earth with a bunch of these creatures called parademons, which also are the denizens of the world that they're invading from. Is, by the way, is called Apocalypse. I don't even know if it's even mentioned in the movie, but I know as from reading DC Comics, that's the world that Darkseid comes from. So basically, Steppenwolf shows up with a bunch of these parademons, and he says, we got to take over this planet. What we're going to do, we're going to try to find the mother boxes, unite them, and then Darkseid will come in. Now, the truth is that Steppenwolf apparently is an offcast of Darkseid. Darkseid doesn't like him because he betrayed him at some point in the past, and this is Steppenwolf's attempt to try to get back in Darkseid's good graces. So really, it's not like this is a sanctioned operation by Darkseid. It's really Steppenwolf trying to do it by himself, which would make some sense why basically he's kind of like doesn't have enough of an army to really just overtake the planet from the get-go. While this is happening, while Steppenwolf is showing up and going throughout the planet and invading various areas, like he goes to the Amazonian camp and he meets with the Amazons and he beats the crap out of them and steals their mother box, okay? Then he's going to the underwater Atlantis, he takes their mother box. While he's doing this, the heroes of the universe, including Batman and Wonder Woman, realize this is going on. And what they're trying to do is create a super team to fight this invasion that's impending and save the Earth. So you start off with just the two, but then basically the story, the other half of the story, is them going all around the planet trying to recruit other heroes. You know, they go and try to find the Flash, who is just in this movie played by Ezra Miller. He's kind of just a kid trying to find his way. You know, his dad is an inmate, and he really has no parental figures or role models in his life, so he's just trying to find his way. But he's just a kid trying to get by, but he has these insane speed powers, and so they try to recruit him. They tried to find Aquaman, who apparently is just someone who has been, I don't know, because I didn't see the Aquaman movie, but in this movie, I guess he's kind of like either disowned or he's an outcast from Atlantis. He chooses not to go down there and take on his duties as I guess he's supposed to be the true ruler, but he doesn't want to be. Instead, he just helps people at this nautical town and tries to fit in as a normal person, when in reality, of course, he's a super being, but, you know, he doesn't want to let that on. And then you've got Cyborg, I'm pointing the wrong direction, who is essentially just like a kind of a jock. He's like a football player who gets into a horrible car accident with his mother, and his mother passes away, and he's, you know, clinging on to life. It just so happens his dad is a major scientist, the head of this kind of research at Star Labs. Now, for those who don't know Star Labs, in the DC universe, Star Labs is this really ultra powerful research company. Usually it's controlled by either some supervillain or a government entity. And basically they do some kind of like crazy high-tech research. And this guy says, I'm going to save my son. So without the sanctioning of Star Labs, he puts all this cyborg technology into his son and essentially turns him into a living machine that can now hack things just by thinking. And he turns arms into guns and he flies and everything. It's kind of like Iron Man without the suit. The suit is him, kind of. So anyway, you have all these new characters introduced into the movie. I mean, Aquaman is not new, but Flash and Cyborg are. And a big arc of the movie is seeing Batman and Wonder Woman trying to recruit all of these people to a super team. Now, there's a lot of things that happen during the course of the movie. It's a 4-hour movie, so I'm really not going to go too heavily into everything. But in a nutshell, I really like some of the action scenes when you've got the forces of Steppenwolf going up against, say, the Amazonians, or going up against, you know, some of the people from Atlantis and stuff. It's kind of neat. And in fact, my favorite fight scene in the entire movie was actually the flashback when it showed the first time that the forces of Apocalypse tried to invade Earth, and all the old, you know, Earthlings teamed up, the old gods and the Atlanteans and the Amazonians. And it was a really epic fight that reminded me of, say, the final fight in Return of the King, or even Avengers Endgame. It was that well done. The effects were good and everything. And it was short, but it was action-packed and very exciting. And there's another action scene right at the end of the movie This is where the heroes are basically invading Steppenwolf's base, and each hero has a unique part to play. You know, Batman is just a human, but he's got all the tech, so he basically takes down the force field, even though he's at risk doing it. Then each other hero has something else that they need to do. You know, while Wonder Woman and Aquaman are distracting Steppenwolf and holding off the forces, you got Cyborg, who's trying to hack the Mother Cube. You got Flash, who's trying to build up a super powered speed boost so he can power the Mother Cube so that Cyborg can hack it. Like, each one has a unique part to play in the end game, and I really liked that too. I think that was really well thought out. The actors themselves, I would say, are quite good in their roles, and after hearing all of this stuff about Ezra Miller being a horrible person in real life, I was wondering if I was going to like the Flash character. You know what? I actually did. I thought the Flash character was humorous, quirky, but is he the Barry Allen that you know from the comics? Absolutely not. But this Flash still kind of worked. I actually liked the character. Okay, I gotta start doing some criticisms now. All right, Batman in this movie, Ben Affleck, I don't blame him. I don't think he did a good job because I don't think the character was written very well. Like, literally every scene he's like talking in his Batman voice. There's scenes with him without the cowl and he's still talking in his Batman voice, and it's stupid. All right, and he's like, oh, my superpower is I'm rich, and that's really it. Like, he's supposed to be like a spoiled rich guy the whole movie, just using his money and his toys to do stuff. It doesn't feel like Batman. It doesn't feel like the Batman we know, even from the other cinematic universes. It just doesn't feel right. I don't like this version of Batman, quite frankly. I feel like it's kind of a crappy version. And he doesn't have much to do in the movie. In fact, until the finale, where he's really the guy who's the most at risk because he has no superpowers, but he still has to take down the force field of the base, he doesn't really do much. Wonder Woman. All right. I was very critical like 8 years ago when I saw Batman vs. Superman of the Wonder Woman character. I still have to be critical. I'm sorry. I don't buy Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I don't. Amazonians are supposed to be strong, muscular women that are super powered, and they're supposed to be like the best of humanity, right? Like, I mean, they're like gods among men. They look like cosplayers. The entire Amazonian race in this movie looks like a bunch of cosplayers, actresses in outfits that you wear for Halloween. It's a joke. They don't look powerful. I don't buy it. The first scene is so well shot where it introduces Wonder Woman and she's trying to defend some people from terrorists. And the terrorists are trying to shoot the people and she runs in front of them and blocks every bullet with her magic bracelets. I'm like, wow, that's badass, except she looks terrible. Because it's again, it looks like a cosplayer. It doesn't look like someone who's supposed to fit the role. The casting is awful for the Amazonians, and it's just terrible. I don't get it. By the way, no slight to her acting. It doesn't look right. I don't buy it. It would be like if every other superpowered male in this movie was a skinny dude like Ezra Miller. Imagine if every one of them was, right? It doesn't make sense. Why do we have to have everyone else a roided, bulky male, but the Amazons look like skinny cosplayers? I just don't get it. I really have to criticize. And another criticism, every single time Wonder Woman shows up for a fight, they play this audio clip of an Amazon going, it is obnoxious. Like, the first time you hear it, okay, that's cool. It's kind of an introduction to the character. The second time you hear it, all right. I'm like, wait, they're not going to do that every time. Literally every time she shows up in an action scene, they play it. It is so annoying after like the fourth time. And there's like 20 times in the movie where they do it. It's ridiculous, okay? Aquaman, I liked, but I didn't like. He's just all right. He kind of feels like a filler character who doesn't get a lot of development in this movie at all. And really doesn't even get to really use his water powers that much at all either. He's more just like kind of a tough guy than anything else. He doesn't control or talk to aquatic animals and use them. He doesn't really control water that much at all. Like, he doesn't do much. He's kind of a wasted character in my opinion. I already said Ezra Miller, I think, does a good job. He's quirky, he's funny, he's supposed to be the nerdy character, the outcast, but ultimately he's one of the most powerful of the Justice League, so I think he's actually a really good character in the movie, how he's written. Cyborg, here's the thing. I like the character. I like the plot. I hate the CGI. I feel that Cyborg is the weakest effect in the movie. He constantly is just a full CGI body that's moving and stuff. It doesn't look good. It looks cheesy to me. And I feel like they should have gone with a different design for Cyborg. Maybe less Cyborg parts. Make him look more realistic. Because he just doesn't look very good. It's constant CGI down your throat. I just don't think it works. But actually, I like the character development of the character because he's battling with his, am I human, am I not, should I even be alive? He's mad at his dad for keeping him alive in this cyborg form. But then what happens is later on in the movie, the father sacrifices himself in order to try to save the planet, and then the son gains newfound respect for him and now wants to kind of, avenge his memory or the loss of his dad's life, by saving the planet, which is kind of a neat twist because up to that point, he hated his dad in the movie. So, anyway, you might mention, I mentioned every character except Superman. And the reason is because Superman's barely in the movie. In Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice, Superman died to Doomsday. And in this one, basically, they know he's the most powerful entity on Earth, but he's dead. So for the movie, they kind of like flub around the fact that maybe they can revive him. And then at one point they realize, oh, we can use the power of the mother boxes and stuff to revive Superman. And then they do. And then there's a whole other arc where Superman has to go spend time with Lois and his mom to try to, he lost his mind. He's kind of a zombie. He doesn't know who he is. He's fighting everyone. And then finally he gains his senses. It's pretty stupid in my opinion. Like, honestly, I think it actually is one of the weakest things in the movie. It's cool when he comes back at the end to kind of help them save the day. But it's kind of a lame story arc the way that it's done in the movie. It almost feels like it's kind of wedged in because they wanted Superman to return. But at the same time, they didn't really know. Like, it could have been its own movie, honestly. Him coming back from the dead. And I don't know really how it really fit in ultimately how it was supposed to go originally in this movie or not. But it just does feel kind of wedged in a little bit last minute. So he's only in like the last hour of the movie, if that. And it's just kind of so rushed that it feels weird to me. Anyway, so overall, here's what I like about the movie, okay? The plot is not bad at all. It's kind of interesting. The effects, for the most part, work. I think that Cyborg is kind of weak, and I do think there's a few action scenes with the CGI that's just over the top too much CGI, and it doesn't work as well, doesn't look good. For the most part, I was impressed, and that's a hard sell for me because I personally am a critic of a lot of CGI in movies, and I think modern CGI doesn't really look that good. I didn't mind the CGI in this movie much. I actually thought it was quite good. And I do think that the cast, once united, work well in the end game where they're all working together off of each other to try to survive and to make it work, their plan. I think it actually works quite well. But I do feel like some of the plot lines are a little bit too drawn out. It is a 4-hour movie. Does it ever feel like it slogs? Maybe once or twice during the earlier segments. Maybe when the Justice League's getting together. Maybe it's a little bit slower paced there. It could have been done a little better. But for the most part, 4 hours kind of fly by. Like, holy shit, I didn't realize it's been 4 hours I've been watching this thing. I watched it in like 1 hour segments over 4 nights. And, I didn't have a problem with it at all with the length. I think that it was actually well executed. And because they had the time to flesh out the plots the way they wanted to. This crazy ensemble cast. I mean, this movie has so many popular actors in it. It was such a crazy ensemble to fit into a regular movie. I can't imagine how they could have all been given their due in the 4 hours, or anything less than 4 hours. I will say this. I feel like Alfred sucks in this because here's why. He's not Alfred. Alfred is essentially, in this universe, the DC universe here, Alfred is kind of like Oracle. The tech person who stays behind and feeds intel and controls all the tech. That's not Alfred. He's literally never been that in the comics. And they made him into this universe. I didn't really like that. But outside of that, it's a pretty solid movie. Now, you want to know what? The movie essentially ends 3.5 hours in. And I was happy with it then. I thought it was pretty good. This movie has like a 20-minute epilogue that is one of the most badass things I've ever seen. Okay? Seriously. The epilogue features an entire, like, 10-plus minute segment that is a future vision of what could happen if no one stops Darkseid and he invades Earth. It shows the ragtag remains of Earth's heroes and villains teaming up together to try to stop Darkseid, including Batman, Deathstroke, the woman from Aquaman's movie who's played by, what's her name? Amber Heard. I don't even know the character's name because I didn't see the Aquaman movie and she really doesn't have much of a role in this movie. And then of all people, all right, Cyborg and the Joker. Yes, the Joker, as played by Jared Leto, is actually in this movie, only in this what-if future scenario that lasts a few minutes. Now, let me tell you something. This version of Joker is creepy and interesting. unlike the Jared Leto Joker that was in Suicide Squad and the other DCEU movies, this Joker is creepy, man. And I think if this Joker had more time to be fleshed out and become a better character, this could have worked in this cinematic universe. Everyone criticizes Jared Leto's Joker, but maybe it wasn't just his fault. Maybe it was actually a lot of creative direction that was bad, because this shows if he had good direction, maybe he could have been a really good Joker character, okay? So anyway, there's like a 15-minute what-if scenario. Then to end the movie, there's an Easter egg. Martian Manhunter appears and reveals himself to Batman and says, I know that Darkseid's on the way. I think it's time for all of us heroes and creatures who've been living on Earth to unite and stop hiding in the shadows and unite. And Batman's like, man, it looks like the Justice League's going to grow. And that's kind of the end of the movie. So I like the epilogue. It's really good. And that kind of epilogue is something you would never have seen if the Zack Snyder cut was allowed to be done. Let's be honest. A typical movie would have been 2 to 3 hours. They would have had to condense a lot. A lot of the side character arcs wouldn't have been fleshed out, right? In fact, I'm curious now, and the thing is, I don't want to watch it because I've heard the theatrical cut is so bad. But you got to wonder what 2 hours of content was cut out and how that really badly affected the movie. Was Darkseid not even in the original cut? That's what I heard, which is crazy because, like, he's supposed to be the big ominous threat coming, much like how Thanos was the big ominous threat coming to the Marvel Universe. And if he wasn't in it, I mean, that would have completely skewed the plot. So, I don't know. Anyway, overall, I like Zack Snyder's Justice League. I think the action's great. The plot is pretty good. The acting is good. There are some foibles and missteps. Like I said, I don't like Batman in this. I don't buy Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I think Superman is kind of misused because he's only wedged in the end, and it seems like it should be a whole subplot that shouldn't even be in this movie for him to come back from the dead and everything. But for the most part, I recommend it strongly. In fact, I think out of all the movies in the DCU, this is the best one. Of the ones that I've seen, this is like hands down. Like, this is 4 times as good as Batman versus Superman. This is like 10 times as good as the first Suicide Squad movie. It's like that good of a movie. I was shocked that this movie apparently originally was panned because this theatrical cut was so bad. I mean, again, what if we just let the actual people who are creators and have artistic visions do the art they want instead of hindering their creative process? I mean, if you listen, I forget who the name of the director is for the Suicide Squad movie, not James Gunn, the original Suicide Squad. Even he said that movie sucks and he knows it. He's like, that's not what I created. I created a completely different movie. They retooled it. They cut out all the parts, and now the movie sucks because it's not my vision. How terrible. Right? Now, here's an example. You let the actual person make the movie they wanted. This movie is great. I actually really enjoyed it. And I'm actually, now that I've seen it, I'm like, shit, this universe is dead. Can you imagine if that epilogue came to fruition and there was a Justice League 2 and there was all this stuff going on? It's dead. They're starting over. They're rebooting now because the thing got so screwed up. And that's sad because I feel like this actually is quite a good movie that could have worked continuing on. So, anyway, I recommend it. Check it out. It's on HBO Max. It is 4 hours, but man, it's a good 4-hour watch. If you liked all those Marvel movies, this essentially is the one movie that I feel like is the equivalent to those that could fight and stand with it. And it's a good romp. It's a good watch. Okay? Everyone, thank you for watching my review of Zack Snyder's Justice League. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all later.